What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel, and we have come to part 4 of my revisiting Outriders series. We've done Trickster, Devastator and Technomancer to thus far, and that means that our last character that we're going to cover today is of course the Pyromancer, which happens to also be my favorite character. What I have today for you is 3 different builds, 2 of them being kind of similar but different enough to warrant discussing separately, and then of course the third one, which I believe is the most efficient way to play the Pyromancer in a solo or in a group environment, just based on the amount of damage that you can do with that. But without any further ado, let's go. As usual, before we actually look at the builds, let's go ahead and have a quick little peek at exactly what happened with the Pyromancer from the buffs patch. As mentioned before, this is of course, when I talk about the buffs patch, I refer to the 12th of August, which now it's been a while already. It's taken me a while to work through this series, but essentially for the 3 builds which I'll be showcasing today, there isn't a massive amount of changes in the buff patch, which, you know, unless you're looking at Ashblast, where this was already super strong, and now, you know, Ashblast, or as we call it on my channel, Ashblast, is just even better. But let's go through each one of these now. Just quickly, one other thing on a side note is that I am experimenting with a volcanic rounds, a bullet build Pyromancer, but especially because there are, you know, bullet builds available from other classes like Trickster and Technomancer, I think that the Pyromancer bullet build is just not quite there yet. Is it viable? Yeah, sure. Have I seen people post some amazing damage with it and have a lot of fun with it? Absolutely, which is one of the reasons why I built it and tried to make it work. But I'll probably bring that in a separate video, just, you know, sort of once I've put a little bit more time into it and a little bit more, you know, thought into the mods. And so therefore, when we look at Feed the Flames as the first one here, this says that the ammo replenishment by bullet absorption mod has been increased to 40%. So this is just basically along the lines of that. If you are playing volcanic rounds Pyromancer, then you're most likely using Feed the Flames as well. Then if we look at volcanic rounds itself, we're seeing that the resistance debuff provided by the susceptibility, that's a hard word, mod has been increased to 50%. Previously it was 34%, so that's a pretty massive increase. The reload boost and lava shots mods have had their perks swapped, which does make a little bit more sense. Reload boost will now increase anomaly power, so previously this increased firepower, and then lava shots will now increase firepower. Previously it was anomaly power, so again, as mentioned, just swapped around. When we get to Ashblast, you'll see that it has its base cooldown reduced by 4 seconds, so it's down from 27 to 23.5. Already the builds that you build with Ashblast are meant to reduce this cooldown by as much as possible, especially if you go top tree. You can get an exceptionally low Ashblast, and this just makes it even more viable because this hard, you know, 4-second decrease is quite a big effect when you then stack 5 pieces of gear with cooldown reduction on and a whole bunch of mods. But we'll definitely see that effect in one of the builds. And then of course the buff duration of death sentence, and this is a big one, was previously 3 seconds long. Death sentence of course being a mod that is quite important to a Ashblast combo. Pyromancer has been increased from 5 seconds, so now the buff lasts for 8 seconds, which is massive. It actually means that you can work more stuff into the rotation. The 3-second duration before was really not any good, to be honest, and it was just not long enough to be I mean, it was good, but it wasn't like the bomb. Now it's literally like the shit. Now, one last thing is I do want to say that I do feel that us Pyromancers were robbed with this patch, and that is that the fact that Eruption as a skill wasn't looked at. It's something that I think a lot of the people in the community want to perform better, me included. I get a lot of people asking me to make a build that makes Eruption work or make it worthwhile. And the problem that I have with this skill is essentially threefold. I think for the kind of skill that it is and for its cooldown, it just does not do enough damage. Of course, there's many ways in which this damage can be increased. They can basically just increase the coefficient that it gets from anomaly power. That's one way. The other way is they can make status power, stack it up just like we see with Faser. And then the other thing that really does need to happen with it is it does need to cause burn. At the moment right now, as the skill itself is basically a giant volcanic eruption from the ground that spews, you know, lava everywhere and does damage over time if you're in it, but it doesn't actually set anything on fire, which is pretty weird. I definitely think if you do that, if you bring, let's say for instance, status power into the picture and you do make it catch things on fire, it would just make it so damn good. I mean, it's difficult for me to say if it would make it too good, but I think at this point in time, I kind of want to say, like, people can't fly don't really have anything to lose by doing that. It would definitely sort of decrease the monotony of playing either Ashblast Overheat Pyro or Faser Pyro, and basically give another viability to anomaly power, because of course, you know, Pyromancer has essentially become this anomaly build class. It is the mage of the game, basically. So as mentioned before, two of the builds we're going to look at today are kind of similar. In other words, they use similar skills and they kind of play the same way, but they're really suited for different purposes. Now, what I'm of course referring to is a build that's centered around the Faser beam. And more specifically, the first one we're going to look at here is essentially what we can call a debuff pyro. Now, this is suited for group play and essentially buffing the damage of any other players that are with you. It works extremely well with other bullet classes like the Technomancer, for instance, which will just make their damage skyrocket. But more importantly, this is also a build that's perfectly suited for Yagag Eye of the Storm kills, because the amount of debuffs that you put on bosses are, you know, so strong that it basically accentuates or doubles or triples the damage that the other classes deal, while at the same time you are not really a slouch in pushing out damage. It's definitely, like I said, more suited for group play. And the other build, the other Faser build, which we'll look at after this, will be more suited for solo. But first things, we always look at the weapons, of course, and in this case I am using Air to the Desert. Of course, you want to have a weapon that has Fortress on it. The reason being that Fortress is pretty much a auto opt-in for whenever you have anomaly builds. It just pushes the damage so much through the roof that by not using it, you are essentially gimping your character. So I think that's an easy choice to make. Of course, the first mod on here being Sandstorm, which is just a nice AoE that drops on point of anything that you shoot, and anything that walks through that sandstorm takes quite a bit of, you know, additional damage. The other main reason why we use Air to the Desert is because we want the status power that's on the weapon there. Now, status power is very important whenever you use Faser, and when we get to the skills later, you'll see why. But basically what it comes down to is the more status power you have, the harder your Faser beam hits, which is fantastic. Now, you can of course use the Moaning Winds swap combo on this build as well, but generally speaking, since you are playing a support role, so you're kind of like in the back, and B, because you're debuffing stuff, and if you're playing in a group, you are essentially, you know, increasing the damage of your partners, you're not really gonna be in a lot of position to have to use this swap combo. But nonetheless, it is there, and you can have it prevalent, or rather present is the right P word there, on the Anemoy and on Tormented and Agony, and you can kind of like switch between these two whenever you want to engage that combo. Now, when we get over to the armor itself, you are using the set bonus from the Akari set. This is important because the set bonus from the Akari set gives a massive debuff to your heat waves. So this basically says that any enemy that has been damaged by heat waves grants additional 50% anomaly damage, anomaly power. So if you hit, let's say 3 mobs with this, you're essentially getting 150% additional anomaly bonus, which is massive. This is capped at 300%, so if you hit 6 mobs, or if you hit 20 mobs or whatever, the maximum you're gonna get is 300% additional. Now, in the first case here, we'll notice that the helmet has status power on here, which is great. Now, your stat priority for this build is, of course, you want anomaly power, you want status power, and you want cooldown reduction. Skills Life Legion is not really important, but it's okay as a substat. So as long as you have either anomaly power and status power, or anomaly power and cooldown reduction, and then basically swapping between also having status power there, or, you know, something else. But your objective here is twofold. You want to drive down your cooldowns as much as possible whenever you can, or you want to add to your Faser beam power with status bar, and that's basically it. So always pick between one of those two, unless you can get both, which is fantastic. But of course, in the case of the helmet of the Akari, we can't, so in this case we take status bar. Now I have Fire Tsunami on here, which increases the width of Heat Wave. It's not essential to have this, and if you feel comfortable in just using the thin Heat Wave, then that's also okay. But the point is that this just makes getting that, you know, hitting 3, 4, 5 mobs that are all clustered together that much easier. And so you kind of get used to playing this way, especially if you've done this for a couple of, you know, hours, or in my case a couple of 100 hours, and then the thin Heat Wave just does not feel like it's up to snuff. Secondly, I have on here Fire Frenzy, which means that my Thermal Bomb can be activated twice before it engages cooldown. So I have the original Thermal Bomb, and then I have one additional one. Now, Thermal Bomb's importance in this is going to become apparent just now when you realize that it's the main tool that you use to debuff stuff. But when we move over to the chest here, we can see that here we have Anomaly Power, Skills, Life Leech, and Cooldown Reduction. So again, just, you know, getting back to what I said before, always make sure that you're either getting status or cooldown reduction. Obviously, in the case of your legendary sets, you don't get to choose these, or you don't get to farm different versions of those, so you always get the same set ones, but my point stands nonetheless. Branded is our skill of choice here, because this basically means that enemies affected by the skill receive 40% more damage. Now this can stack, so you can put 2 thermal bombs on something, which means that it takes twice the effect, which is the main reason why we have Fire Frenzy over here. The second skill we have here is Tidal Wave, which gives us our second Heat Wave, which is also quite important. Again, it just helps you ramp up your Anomaly Power a lot quicker with the combination of the set bonus, of course. This means we have access to 2 Heat Waves. When we move over to the pants, we have Anomaly Echo. Now, Anomaly Echo is not that great of a mod, but you kind of have to take it because you do want to add something onto the second mod on this. In this case, I'm putting Ashen Champion on here. Anomaly Echo is just additional cream on top. It's basically, you know, as soon as you activate a skill, you get another, you know, 11,400 Anomaly Power. And this is every 15 seconds. And your cooldowns are going to be so fast that you'll definitely be having this up almost all the time during a fight. Ashen Champion, we spoke about it earlier in the patch notes. Oh, no, sorry, that was Death Sentence, so forget about that. Ashen Champion basically says, sorry, I always get these two confused with each other. Ashen Champion says that instead of putting burn on something when you hit it with Phaser Beam, it actually inflicts ash. Now, each enemy hit boosts your Anomaly Power by 20% for 10 seconds, and this can stack up to 5 times, aka 100%. Now, basically what this means is when you throw a Phaser Beam, and a Phaser Beam is essentially like a laser that you shoot, so it can over penetrate a whole bunch of stuff. It doesn't stop when it hits a mob, but more importantly, phasers can go through walls, it goes through terrain, everything. So as long as you can sort of angle yourself in a way that you are hitting, you know, at least 4 or 5 characters with one hit of, you know, phaser, you are going to see a massive increase to your Anomaly Power as well. Then when we get over to the gloves, this is our first piece of purple gear. Here again, we have the trifecta. We have Anomaly Power, Status Power, and Cooldown Reduction, which is absolutely what we want. We have Burnt Out Ear, which is an absolute massive requirement, again, for the whole debuff side of this thing. And this is a mod for Heat Wave that says damaged enemies take 25% more damage for 8 seconds. And that's enemies that, of course, have been hit by the Heat Wave. So this can also stack exactly the same way as Branded can stack, as we looked at here before. So Branded here. So again, the point is that your combo is often, especially when you want to take down something really chunky, and most of the times they don't survive this combo, but in the case of your Gag, for instance, you're going Thermal Bomb, Heat Wave, and then he's got like the maximum, you know, debuff on him, and you can just, you know, take care of business. Now, your second mod on here is Size Matters for the Phaser Beam, which increases the beam's radius by 100%. This is how big the cone is, essentially the laser that it shoots. If you don't have this mod on, you have to be fairly accurate with Phaser Beam, whereas if you have this on, you can often have a situation where you have 2 clumps of mobs running at you, and you can just point the phaser right down the middle between them, and it'll actually burn and kill everything on both sides of the laser, which is fucking mwah. So then when we get over to boots, again here, trifecta, Anomaly Power, Status Power, Cooldown Reduction. Obviously you want as much Anomaly Power as possible. We have Freaking Phaser on here, which says that this reduces the skill's cooldown by 30%. That's massive. This gives you extremely fast cooldowns on the Phaser Beam, which is your main way of pushing out damage when you're not busy, you know, debuffing stuff. Make no mistake, your thermal bombs are going to hit hard, your heat waves are going to get hard, but your phasers are going to hit like a Mac fucking truck. The second mob on here, mod on here is bullet kindling. Now this says that you deal 20% more damage against enemies afflicted by burn. Now all of your shit except for phaser beam causes stuff to burn. Your melee causes stuff to burn, your heat waves causes stuff to burn, your thermal bombs when they explode or when they're on something they cause stuff to burn. So this is just going to mean that you're going to do additional damage to anything that's burning. Now make no mistake, this is only you though, unfortunately. This would be fantastic if this was you and your allies, but unfortunately it's only you. Then if we look at the skills, as it's been clear by now, our 3 skills of choice is of course heat wave, thermal bomb, and phaser beam. Now if you look at the cooldowns on this is just brutally sexy. You've got basically sub 7-second heat waves, you've got 6-second thermal bombs, of which you can throw 2 out, and then you've got a 6.4-second phaser beam. And you can see that the status power coefficient here that I'm getting, so again, phaser beam benefits from 210% of your status power. So this means that this 472 here is before any adjustments are made for additional damage from heat wave, additional damage from thermal bomb, and the additional anomaly power that you get from each. So these phasers hit hard. We're talking millions of damage. When we go to the class tree, last but not least, we are of course going bottom tree. The reason for this is twofold. One, again, we want to stack as much AP as possible. If we refer back to our class or our inventory page at the beginning, we'll see that we're already standing at 170k. Of course, once you start actually slinging out spells and stuff or abilities, then this skyrockets because you're basically doing things that increase your anomaly power by 50%, 100% here and everything like that. So again, just going back here, just some highlights here. Of course, you want to be picking up cooldown reduction as you can here. This will increase decrease the cooldown of your, basically your thermal bomb, which has a fairly high cooldown to begin with, and your phaser beam. Did I say phaser bomb? That's terrible. Your thermal bomb, which has a fairly high cooldown to begin with, and same for your phaser beam. And as you can see, having stacked them all together, you get quite a bit of a reduction. The highlights here, of course, is Wildfire, which just decreases all of your cooldowns, across the board by 10%. I do also pick up like Meltdown up here, which basically increases damage of your burn on enemies. So your ticks from the burn, the fire that's burning on something, deal more damage. We are getting with Fire and Anomaly as well, which says that basically when you activate an explosive skill, in this case Thermal Bomb, it increases your anomaly power by additional 12% for 10 seconds. So there's just a whole bunch of these, anomaly buffs that are stacking on top and just making it a lot more dangerous. Because this is a buff build, and because I use this build a lot for Yagag and for Eye of the Storm, I do have Phoenix on here as well, just as a oh shit, we kind of screwed up, but don't worry, I've got an extra life situation. If you play the character extremely safe, or if you play it only in expeditions, this is a free point which you could potentially put somewhere else. We do get flames that burn twice here as well, which just increases your damage against elites or bosses with 10%. And last but not least, we also do get Grave Ablaze, which increases your explosive skills base damage by 30%, which is massive. It just makes those thermal bombs hit really nice and chunky. But that's it basically for all of the different, sort of parts of building this debuff pyro. And as I said, this is a fantastic choice for group scenarios, or more specifically, kicking your Gug's ass. Now for the second phaser build, and this is a personal favorite of mine, we're going to discuss the differences that it has to the previous one, but essentially what it comes down to is the previous build is more suited for group play and for debuffing, where this particular phaser build is about getting big hits and is very suited for solo play. It doesn't clear nearly as fast as Overheat Ashblast combination does, but what you do is is punch really big holes and stuff with the phaser. It's incredibly impressive, and by no means does it mean that you cannot play this with other characters in a group, in a co-op scenario. What it however does mean though is you're not going to benefit from those great debuffs that were present in the previous character, but you are going to hit extremely hard, and in that way you can essentially be like the boss killer with this one. Again, if you like seeing 4.5, 5.5, 6.5, 7.5 million damage phasers hitting, then this is absolutely the build for you. But as usual, we'll go ahead and start off with the weapons. Now the weapons are exactly the same as for the previous build, the previous Faser one we were looking at, and that's of course because we do want to have a weapon that has Fortress on it, and we do want to have a weapon that has status power on it. Now in my case, that just so happens to be Heir to the Desert. However, there are other options available. As I said, the most important thing being that it's something that you can slap Fortress onto, that hopefully has a great intrinsic ability to do AoE damage, like for instance Sandstorm, and that it has status power on the weapon. Of course, the Moaning Winds combo does feature here, but stuff is very rarely gonna live long enough for you to have to worry about doing this, especially as you play this and you get better at sort of picking your lanes correctly and hitting stuff with Faser down a line, which can usually down multiple characters that are running at you in a straight line, or even not that much of a straight line. When we get over to the armor, this is of course where the bread and butter difference is going to be to the previous build. But as always, we are using the Akari set. The Akari set gives so much additional anomaly power with its set bonus that we get from using Heatwave, that there really is no other set that's more viable than this. It is up to People Can Fly to make the other sets deal more damage or give more viability before people can break away from the Akari. But other than that, the Akari set is just too fucking hot, pardon the pun, to not use. Now here we are using Fire Tsunami, of course, because we want the wide heat wave, but here we have Unstoppable Force. Now right off the bat, I'll tell you that this build is a build that abuses the anomaly power stacking that you get from resistance piercing and just normal armor piercing. So you'll notice that right off the bat, this character has 30% armor piercing and 15% resistance piercing. Now the interaction here, of course, is that you're using Unstoppable Force and another mod, which we're going to get to just now, to increase the anomaly power of your character. And then within your skill tree, or your class tree rather, you have mods that further on enable this as well. But as Unstoppable Force increases your anomaly power by 50% of your resistance piercing. So currently my resistance piercing is 15%, so at the moment right now I'm only getting 7.5%. Okay, then when we get to the chest piece, we have got no resistance against the fortified, which is it increases your resistance piercing by 50% of your armor piercing. Now that's where I'm getting the 15% from here, because my armor piercing is 30%, and of course my armor piercing, this 30% is coming from Heir to the Desert, which is another great stat to have on the weapon that you're using. Not as essential as status power, but definitely if you can have both on there, that's fantastic. And in the case of Heir to the Desert, that is exactly what it does, which is another reason why I use it. Now these two basically then mods then feed into each other, and you'll see this interaction more when we look at the class tree. We're also using Tidal Wave here, which gives us our second heat wave. Heat wave is very important for upping our anomaly power through the set bonus of Akari, so of course it's included. We have Anomaly Echo on the Panzer again. My same comment here as what I used in the previous build is that it's not the best mod in slot, but we definitely have to replace the second mod on here, so we kind of have to. In the case of this, it's Ashen Champion, again the same as the previous build. Ashen Champion is too good to not put on if you are using Faser. You are losing out on a shitload of damage if you are not using Ashen Champion, due to the fact that it basically empowers your anomaly power by 100% as long as you're hitting 5 or more shit every time when you fire off your Unibeam. Then when we get to the gloves, I'm using the same gloves as with the previous set as well, because we've got Burnt Out here, which is essential for just, making enemies that have been hit by heat wave take that much more damage. AKA when you start off fighting against a boss, hit him with 2 heat waves, and that's just going to make him do, take 50% more damage right off the bat. Size matters is important here, because Faser Beam is your main way that you're going to be dealing damage, and it's also the main way in which you push through an expedition as fast as possible. So you are going to look for lanes where you can put a big laser through, and this just means that you are able to, for instance, fire the laser through 2 groups and get your maximum kills. Then when we look at the feet, same thing. So boots, it's frequent phaser, so we get more phaser beams, and we're using bullet kindling on here because, again, all of your skills except for Faser and your melee, by the way, set stuff on fire. It gives them burn, so this just means that you'll deal more damage against those things. When we go over to the skills, the big difference here is, of course, that we are using Feed the Flames. Now, Feed the Flames is good for 2 things. One, it actually has it's a great oh shit button that allows you to get HP if you're in a little bit of trouble. And since we are using this build to play solo, this is kind of important that you have that sort of cantrip that you can get out of trouble with. But also on the other hand, it's just really good for, you know, essentially locking down something by just putting ash on it. So if something's about to do something bad to you, or it's you know, about to cast a spell that you don't want it to cast, or an ability or something like that, you hit them with Feed the Flames and it also interrupts them and puts ash on them. Now Heat Wave needs no explanation, and of course Faser here needs no explanation. You'll notice that the cooldowns are ridiculous. So we have 5.5 second heat waves with this. We have a slightly faster than 10 seconds Feed the Flames here. And then we have a 5.3 second rotation on Faser Beam, which is just nuts. It's basically 2 phases every 10 seconds, which is super sexy. Our status power is not as highly stacked as it was with the previous build. But that's also fine because basically we're still dealing, you know, quite a bit of damage. And this build has a much higher ramping potential, and so therefore you know, it can really make your phasers hit really hard. Plus enemies build up resistance to your skill, so for some reason if something survives that initial phaser, then the second phaser has the potential of not hitting them as hard. Due to the fact that you have so much resistance piercing, it means that fact is basically negated. Plus the other thing is your resistance piercing can help you cut through already present resistances on mobs, which again makes this really good for group play in that aspect as well. When we get to the class tree, we'll see that in this case we're not going bottom tree to pick up as much anomalous power, but we're basically going mid tree. The difference between mid and bot tree is essentially that mid tree does give you a little bit more survivability, it does make you a little bit more tankier, but also on the same side it's much more geared toward this resistance piercing playstyle. But the highlights here of course is that you should be picking up Magma Golem every time, because Distant Flame here gives you additional anomaly power for each one of these Magma Golem nodes that you've picked up. Wildfire is an automatic inclusion because it just drops the cooldowns of everything. And right about here we're going to shoot upwards and we're going to pick up Incinerate, which says that the minute that burn ends, something turns to ash, which is again just a great way for you to disrupt combat. If you hit a whole bunch of stuff with a heat wave and they for some reason don't die from the heat wave or the burn afterwards, then as soon as that burn clears, they have ash status and they're essentially stunned for a little while. We are picking up Hot Situation because what Hot Situation does is every time when you feed the flames, it increases your anomaly power by 45% for 10 seconds, which is huge. So not only is your Feed the Flames a oh shit button, but it's also a boost button for if you want to dump a lot of damage onto something for 10 seconds. Over here we are picking up Anomalous Lava. Anomalous Lava basically says that whenever you activate an Ignite skill, it increases your armor by 45%. This is one of the things that makes the middle tree a lot more tankier, because this basically means every time when you cast Heat Wave, every time when you cast Phaser, you're increasing your armor by 45%. It does not stack, so it means that it's only ever going to be 45% more armor, but because your skills are on such low cooldown, you're always going to have this up. Then over here we're saying Fuel for the Embers, which doubles your skill life leech whenever you go under 30% of max health. So if for some reason something is really putting a whole bunch of damage on you, the added benefit is then as soon as you start pushing your skills out, you're getting the additional armor here, and you're getting double skills leech as well, which means that all of your abilities that you're using are just going to heal you that much quicker. It's quite common to essentially be almost dead and then hit like a cluster of mobs with Phaser and be completely overhealed to full and have no problem whatsoever. Plus you're still sitting with this 45% additional armor for 10 seconds afterwards. We are picking up Trial by Fire and Warm Up here, both of these, one reducing our cooldowns on two of our essential skills, Heat Wave and Phaser, and the other one essentially making enemies afflicted by burn take more damage. But then this is the big one, Magma Elemental. Now this says that every time you ignite, you use ignite skills, you increase your armor piercing by 45% and your resistance piercing by 45%. And because you have this mechanism built in with those two mods that we discussed before, this essentially makes those two then also feed back into each other again. So this is like a double ramp up kind of situation, and this means every time when you cast Heat Wave and every time when you cast Phaser, this buff is present. And because those are lower than 10-second cooldowns, as soon as you get into a fight with this build, you essentially always have this up. Now, the other big thing is, remember that you have armor and resistance piercing at an extremely high value. Both of these shoot above 50%, above 60, above 70% in some cases. So you are cutting through resistances and anything that basically has built up some kind of a tolerance to your damage, or, you know, to your teammates' damage as they've been hitting them as well. But that's essentially it. That covers the 2 Faser builds. This is a personal favorite of mine, as I've mentioned, and it really is meant for people that just want to watch the world burn. Now, last but not least, and I know this has been a super long video, so thank you so much for bearing with me, we arrive at essentially the build, I guess, that made Pyromancer famous. And it is, of course, Ashblast Overheat combo, which is fed by the Akari set. And this is by far the most efficient build for doing massive amounts of AoE damage and just incredibly fast clears in expeditions. This is perfectly suited for solo play. It works pretty well in group play as well, but this is really, you know, where it shines like crazy is in solo play. And it is the build that is used to chase world records and the fastest clear times in expeditions. Now, right off the bat, if we go into what seems to be wrong with my, I feel like, there we go. Sorry, so my stats were just a little bit off there and I noticed it. So this features the triple, or rather the moaning winds. Now, in this case here, I am using Shadow Comet in here. You can be more efficient by also just putting moaning winds in here and then essentially having the 3 swap moaning winds combo present. I don't like it that much. I'm not that much of a fan of that, so I prefer to just use Shadow Comet because I like the way that you can sort of poke with Shadow Comet from pretty far away, because the Death Shield's range is not too bad for a shotgun, and also because you can hip fire with Shadow Comet on a weapon and then it actually drops multiple Shadow Comets and they all deal each damage around each other. So it's just really good for that, and that's one of the reasons why I like it. But yes, this is absolutely, you're using, of course, Fortress because you are on an anomaly build, so you'd be silly not to, and you are enabling yourself to be able to do the Moaning Winds combo for anything that comes close by. Now, in the case of when we get over to the armor, we'll notice that here we're using 3 different pieces of Akari set than usual, and we're actually using the boots here, which doesn't give you anomaly power but gives you max health, so you do lose out a little bit on anomaly power. But the main aim of the game here is you want cooldown reduction on all 5 of your pieces, and that's the reason why we do it this way. So when we look at the headpiece here, I've got the trifecta that you want anomaly power, you want cooldown reduction, and you want status power. Absolutely necessity is you want as much anomaly power as possible, but you want as much cooldown reduction as possible. And then if you have to choose something else, you have to choose between skills, life leech, and status power, but status power is absolutely the best. I have Tidal Wave on here, which gives me 1 additional heat wave, which is essential, and I have Ashen Boost on here, which makes you deal 20% more damage against anything that's afflicted by ash. Now, this build is of course built on the combo of boosting up your damage, getting a whole bunch of stuff around you, or coming towards you, hitting Ashblast, infecting them all with ash, or basically making them all ashed, and then hitting them with an overheat, which deals massive amounts of damage to stuff that has the ashen status and basically murders everything. So this just further on boosts that damage up. When we get to the chest piece here, we have Detonator, which reduces the cooldown of overheat by 50%. That is massive. You want your cooldown for overheat and you want your cooldown for ashen or rather Ashblast or Ashblast to be as close to each other as possible, so that it enables easy using of the combo. Or failing that, you want a situation where you can pull off 2 overheats for every 1 Ashblast rotation. So in this case, we're just trying to drop overheat's cooldown as much as possible, even though we already have so much cooldown reduction just built into the character already. We're using Captain Hunter on here as well, because as I've mentioned, this build is about dealing AoE damage, so you want to have every little bit of edge against elites that you might need to focus down and do a lot more damage against. When we get to the pants, again, Anomaly Echo, not the best skill or the best mod, but we usually have to replace the second slot on this piece of gear. In this case, I use Fire Tsunami here because we get that thicker heat wave, and that's also important just to get the additional damage from heat wave, or make it easier rather. When we get to the gloves, again, here we are aiming for ways of basically improving Ashblast, because Ashblast is our main way of dealing the most damage that we can. In this case here, we're putting Ash Increase Range on here, which increases the skill's range by 66%. This is important because by default, Ashblast, its radius that it affects is a lot smaller than Overheat. Whereas once you put this on, they're almost the same. Overheat still goes a little bit further, but basically, you know, this kind of puts the two on them on par in terms of range. We use Death Sentence on here. Death Sentence is, of course, one of the things that's benefited from the buff patch. And this says that your weapon damage and anomaly damage against enemies affected by the skill are increased respectively by 40% and 30% for 8 seconds after you use Ashblast. Now, this is huge because it does empower your anomaly spells to, you know, deal more damage afterwards, 8 seconds after you Ashblast. But the other big thing here, of course, is that this actually also enables your moaning winds from your different weapons to hit a lot harder, because this is also weapon damage. So this is you know, kind of like a very noticeable skill in terms of the damage that it brings to the build, having it present or not having it present. So you'll definitely notice a massive uptick in the damage that you can push out once you introduce this to your build. Once we get to the boots here, of course, we do want to have Master Consumer, which comes by default on boots of the Akari, and this basically just says that your Overheat can consume either burn or ash. So it doesn't have to just be ash. It can, you know, consume burn as well, which comes from Heatwave. But more importantly, if for some reason a mob like a boss or something that's managed to survive, you know, your Heatwaves or something like that, has burn and ash on them, then this essentially deals a whole bunch more damage at 150%. We also have Burnt Out on here, which again is just super important for making stuff that is hit by your Heatwave just take far more damage. Because you have 2 Heatwaves, you can stack this on a boss and essentially deal 50, well, rather have them take 50% more damage is the right way to say it. When we get to the skills, of course, we're using Heatwave, we're using Ashblast, and we're using Overheat. You'll see the glorious low cooldowns that we have here. We have a very fast Heatwave at 5.9 seconds. We have an extremely respectable Ashblast at 8.6 seconds, and we have an Overheat at 5.8 seconds. My rotation is not perfect. I cannot pull off 2 Overheats in terms of every Ashblast. But what I essentially do is I play around that by using either melee or working in like a Shadow Comet, or sort of like flexing in some Heat Waves in between there. But essentially the combo is usually always that you open up as you're running towards stuff with like shooting with a Shadow Comet, you Heat Wave, you Ashblast, you wait until the Ashblast, because Ashblast is not instant. It's like a wave that runs out from you and ripples out from you onto minions. You wait and it's visible that you can see as it hits mobs and it starts turning them to ash. So you wait 1 to possibly stretching it out to 2 seconds for it to hit as much as possible, and then you hit the thermonuclear device and you overheat and kill everything. If you don't wait for Ashblast to actually do this ripple effect, and often you'll have situations where you'll notice stuff that's a little bit further away from you will almost take, I would say, not no damage, but it'll take considerably less damage than the things that are right close to you. So it's important that you do keep this in mind, and that when you're playing this kind of build, or this build particularly, that you bear in mind that when you Ashblast, there's that short little time that you have to wait while it hits everything out in this wave. Overheat doesn't have this ripple effect. It's instant. It's like basically, it's like a switch that you hit and then it just kills everything that has ash on it. So you kind of have to get used to that tempo switch there. When we get to the class tree here, we are going top tree for this. The reason for this is twofold. One, top tree has great buffs for an Ashblast rotation, but more importantly, it also lowers your Ashblast cooldown by far the most. Can you play this build bottom tree? Hell yeah. Especially, I think some would argue that it's even better now due to the fact that you just get this intrinsic Ashblast lowered cooldown from the buff patch already. So in some ways it might be preferred to play it down this way because you get access to far more anomaly power. But I really do just prefer the top tree just because it just makes it so incredibly fast. But as usual, you are going down and you're making sure to pick up Wildfire because that's just a flat cooldown reduction to everything. And then you're getting hard situation because you do want to be able to, you do want to be able to get the damage bonus from whenever you activate an Ashblast. Now what this means is that when you do the combo and you go weapon, heat wave, Ash Blast. When you hit that, your anomaly power increases by 45%, and then once you wait for the ring to hit everything, you hit that overheat and you get the benefit of this. Plus it's 10 seconds, so probably 1 or 2 more heat waves after that will also benefit from the skill. You are getting Incinerate as well, which says that when burn ends, everything is affected with ash. You want as much as possible stuff to have ash status on them. This is a real tongue twister of a video. I've literally busted my mouth like so many times on ash, but anyway, you do want to have stuff have ash on it as much as possible, so that you always hit it with the overheat. You are picking up Ashes to Ashes, which says that every time when you hit something with Ash, it also has Vulnerable on it, which is fantastic for just additional damage too. Hurt twice as long is good because you deal more damage to elites and they deal less damage to you, which is fantastic. And then here, you can't see it behind my big fat face, but I am picking up Trial of the Ashes as well, which makes you deal more damage to stuff that have ash on it. And you are picking up this Marble Orchard, which basically reduces your cooldown as well. You are not picking up Burning Situation because this increases your weapon damage, which is not important for this. And by the way, you don't have any more skill points left, so that's pretty easy. But that's it for this build. This is by far, I would say, the most cookie cutter way to build Ashblast Overheat combo. There's some nuance here. There's 1 or 2 points that you can sort of change around. You could, for instance, put something, you could give yourself more armor if you don't want to use Incinerate or something like that. There's a little bit of things that you can do different here, but not a lot. This is kind of like the way how you build top tree of that. As I've said, you can also go bottom tree, and I know a lot of people that have found success with that, but this is just the way that I prefer to play it. And I think this is also probably the way in which most of the world records are set. And I was trying out for a lot of that for a while, so it kind of just made sense that I made myself get used to playing it this way. But that's it for the builds, guys. Let me know, and this is essentially now finished with my series on revisiting Outriders. It does not mean that I'm stopping coverage of the game. I'm stopping coverage of builds, everything like that. It is a game that I still play regularly by myself, but also with friends, and also every once in a while on stream. We do collab streams with this. So it is something that is not going away from my channel, but I did want to just sort of do this refresh kind of thing after the buff patch. And who knows if there's another large buff rotation, or more specifically, as we know, People Can Fly are now finally starting to address things like certain mods being far more overpowered to others, Fortress, Moaning Winds, that sort of thing. So of course, if they make any big changes to that, that's going to really ruffle up the meta, so to speak. And of course, I could then probably revisit again. I guess this is a never-ending thing, but I really do enjoy it, and I do want to thank you for watching this, especially if you made it this far. Let me know in the comments down below if you enjoy playing the Pyromancer, if you're still playing Outriders, what's your favorite class, and more importantly, what's your favorite build for the Pyromancer. But it's just super important to me that you have a fantastic morning, a great afternoon, and an awesome evening wherever you are in the world. And until next video, fucking cheers.
They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me.